Okay, this is the Roland Telecenter U Intercom and Paging System training. This system also is your small message boards, which double as a clock. So this is an all-in-one training. My name is John Ellis, and if you have any questions, this normally goes through District IT first, but if you have to contact us, our contact information is here in the bottom right-hand corner. And I will be providing copies of this PowerPoint as well as all of the PDF documents that we discuss in here at the end of the training. What we're going to go over today, some specific operational functions for your school. We'll talk about the O&M manuals that will be provided both with the training materials as well as at job closeout. We'll do a general operations overview. We will do a virtual walkthrough of all of the equipment and devices. We will take you through a live sequence of operations in your system. We'll talk about emergency procedures, who's required to maintain what, and then common errors in troubleshooting. First off, this slide, when you do get these PowerPoint documents, if your role includes managing your building, such as the bell schedules, sounds, or so forth, please go into the PowerPoint, click on one of the top two hyperlinks, and bookmark this. This will be the website that I will show you during the live portion. If you go to that website and your username or password does not work, this is a call to District IT. This system is configured to use the same username and password as you use to log into your PC. So the username would be the portion in front of the @ sign of your email. The password would be the same one that is on your computer itself. And if you cannot get logged in, you may want to ask them to add you to the Telecenter Users AD group as it appears right here in the PowerPoint, because that is required for login. The permissions in this system also are managed by District IT. So if you go to log in, you get logged in successfully, but you do not see what I'm telling you you should be able to do out of today's training, this is a permissions issue that District IT needs to manage. Your desk phones. These are the phones throughout the whole building. If there's a difference between a phone and a device, I'll show you later. A phone can dial an outside line. When you pick up a phone, you can dial **20. That will give you another dial tone, at which point you can interface with the intercom system, and you can do any of these dial codes that you see here. You can dial any intercom extension at that point, in which case you will enter into a two-way call with a particular classroom. I will also provide you a list of those paging extensions at the conclusion of training. And then similarly, there are these 900 codes. The 900 codes will be a one-way page to various parts of the building. The things that I want you to take away from this, you don't have to memorize them all, but I do want you to remember that 900 is an all page and 999 is an emergency all page. The reason that I want you to remember these is this system is installed in nearly all of the buildings in your district, soon to be all. And these are consistent throughout the district. So if you find yourself in somebody else's building and you need to initiate an emergency all page, you pick up a phone, you dial *20 and 999. We'll get you that emergency all page. And then also in this building, you do have two emergencies on the admin console. We'll look at those when we get to the admin console portion in detail. You do have lockdown and lockout initiation capability. However, your clearing of those emergencies follows the district process, which is externally, I believe it's through Paragon, your normal clear process.
So what's the difference between an all page and an emergency page?
Good question, always get that. The difference is that emergency all page is the highest priority audio in the system, and also it ignores all exclusions. Now we're going to talk about exclusions later, but this is important. If you need to get your message out, an emergency all page will do it, irrespective of what is going on elsewhere on the speakers, or if somebody has asked not to be disturbed, an emergency all page will override that. Any others? O&M manuals. We're not going to go through them. I'm just going to tell you what those 4 PDFs are that you're going to get as part of this. There will be one PDF covering everything you didn't need to know about the Ashley amplifiers that I'll show you later. And then 3 manuals broken up into the user guide, installation guide, and programming manual for the actual Telecenter hardware. 900 plus pages of quality reading material. This is the admin console. It is not a phone. I mentioned earlier that phones allow you to dial an outside number for help. This is just for full interaction with your paging and intercom system. There are 2 of them on this job. One will be located in the main office. The other will be located in the principal's office. They will be on the map here in a few slides. On the right-hand side of this admin console, let's see here. On this side over here, these boxes will be populated if somebody calls in from a classroom, in which case you can answer the call-in. This is an intercom 2-way functionality. If there's more than 3 simultaneous call-ins, you can scroll up and down on the right-hand side of the admin console. This requires call switches to be present in the classrooms, which I do not have in this particular room to show you, but if there are any on the job, you'll see them in a later slide on what they look like.
I don't believe there are.
Okay, that's fair enough. More common in the elementary and middle schools. Across the bottom of the admin console, these 4 colored boxes here, this is not a touch screen, so right below them, these 4 silver buttons correspond to the blocks above. The blocks above are dynamic. So don't worry about what's on the screen right now. We're going to look at yours in detail in just a moment. But know that they can change based on what plane or screen you are on. Some of the buttons will jump you to a new screen automatically, and we'll talk about those again on the next slide. But if you wanted to manually switch between planes, these left and right arrows just between the 4 will do so. Below, we have a volume up and down. Now, just because you don't have call switches in the classroom does not mean that you cannot initiate a 2-way conversation with the room. That was done earlier through your desk phone on the previous couple of slides. You also could do it here just by dialing any classroom extension directly. When you are in a 2-way conversation with a classroom, this volume up and down button controls you at the admin console, how well you hear the other room. It does not control the room's volume hearing you. This down in the bottom left-hand corner is a traditional hands-free button. If you do not want to use the handset, I caution you against doing that if you're making a page into a speaker that is right above your own admin console. You will end up with some feedback. And then this last button down here on the right is not something that I want you to have to use often. As a matter of fact, if you find yourself using this, I want you to pay attention to what room that you are doing it on and report that to district IT. Here's when you would use it and why. If you ever are in a 2-way conversation with the classroom and you just hear the students talking in the background and you're talking, Mrs. Smith, please send Johnny to the front office, and you only hear Mrs. Smith's students and she never acknowledges you, this is because the classroom is too loud. The speaker will default to a microphone. If you push and hold this button like a push-to-talk button on your walkie-talkie radios, you at the admin console will become the talker. So you would press that button, Mrs. Smith, send Johnny to the front office, release the button, and now you're back to listening to the room. Any questions on the admin console? Okay, looking at the buttons specific to this installation, these are 5 planes out of 16 that can be programmed. This is what is in your school right now. Both admin consoles look identical. The first plane is called the home plane, and it is the one that when you pick up the handset after not having used it for a while, this is what it will default to. If you go to any other plane and you don't do any actions, it will return to this. We have emergency all page and an all page. We talked about those earlier, the difference between the two. We have lockdown and lockout that actually jumps you down to plane 10. And we have another button on the home screen that says Zone Page. Zone Page will jump you to Plane 2. You also could get here just by pressing the right arrow. Once you get into the zone pages, you have the 3 of the logical zones that you can page into. You have a button that says More Zones that will jump you down to Plane 3. You could also just press the right arrow again. You have 3 additional zones to page into, and if you're impatient, you don't want to wait the 45 seconds for it to time out, you can press the Go Home button and it will jump you back up to Plane 1. Had you found yourself pressing Lockdown, Lockout, you would have ended up on this plane. And these will start your lockdown and lockout exactly the same as the mushroom button on the wall would. And as before, you need to clear this through your normal processes.
So on plane 1, when you press the lockdown, lockout button, that doesn't actually do anything. It just takes you to that.
Correct. Takes you to another screen.
Is there
I'm sorry?
Is there a PIN code or anything for the lockdown and lockout?
Your district does not use PIN codes on the lockdown lockouts. From the home screen, you also could just press left once, and that would jump you to Plane 16. And on Plane 16, we have a couple of special buttons. The far left one says Manual Bells. That will ring your bell tone once. You have another button that says Bells On, and in brackets, Off. And I'm going to explain these brackets in just a second. The next button is Auditorium Message Boards, On, and in brackets, Off. And then you have a Music Off, and in brackets, On. The reason these are written in brackets is these buttons, these last 3, actually serve 2 purposes. They're a toggle button. When the text is black with a black border, it is the default action. So that's the one outside of the box. So by default, your bells are always on. By default, your message boards in the auditorium are on. And by default, your music is off. If you were to press those buttons, all of the text and the box itself will turn red, in which case I want you to remember it is the boxed function. The bells would then be off, the message boards would be off, and the music would be on. These exclusions auto-reset at midnight. Again, we'll talk about exclusions a little more, but if you were to turn the bells off and you forget, tomorrow they will be back on. If you leave the music on all night long, at midnight it'll turn itself off. The most common use for these 2 buttons right here, there's 2 common uses. One is you have an assembly this afternoon, you don't feel like creating a whole special schedule for your assembly. When the assembly begins, you reach over, you turn your bells off. When you come back from your assembly, if you're going to run the schedule for the rest of the day, turn it back on. More commonly, manually ring the bells for the rest of the day. Another common scenario is, a fairly uncommon scenario, but the second most common use of this will be inclement weather. You close the school for the day, but you can't get in. Janitorial staff might be on site. If you like your neighbors, you could ask the janitorial staff to walk into the admin console and turn the bells off. And that would just keep them from ringing everywhere. Any questions on these soft keys? Okay, at this point, we are going to actually flip to the live demo, same screen. I'm going to cover these few bullets here. We'll log in, we'll talk about audio controls, attachment, schedule management, and calendar. It may look like I'm jumping around, however, consumed in this order, you will be successful with each of the following bullets. If you were to click on one of those hyperlinks on page 2 of the PowerPoint, you would have ended up at a screen that looks just like this. You will place your username, the part to the left of the @ sign in your email, and your computer password into this box. If this is your personal assigned computer, not a shared asset, feel free to check the remember me box, but if it's shared, do not do so. When you log in, yours will look like this. The reason being, I just logged in with a full admin account. You will be limited to just the schools you work in, and therefore it would come up as Mountain View High School. I can see during this training, there are no schedules on the calendar, but if we were doing it during the school year, you would see your various normal or late start or similar. The next thing I wanted to show you was tools, audio controls. And again, because you will not be full admins, it will default to your particular school. There are several expandable bullets down the left-hand side. We'll talk about each of them. The first one is zones. Now it says that you have 17 zones here. This is logical zones. This is not physical speaker zones in your school. But in a logical view, you have the ability to set or clear exclusions in each of three types of audio. Page exclusions, this is the one-way audio that I send out, not an intercom conversation. That's live voice. Schedule exclusions, these are more commonly thought of as your bell events. And program exclusions is your music, the live music. Back when we talked about the music on-off button, this is the music it's talking about. None of my customers use the program channel method of subscribing a particular zone to music, so we don't need to worry about that. Just know that we can set or clear exclusions logically. An exclusion means that if that type of audio was to arrive in your zone, it would not play. So perhaps you're doing standardized testing and you're using the library to do this. You don't want to be disturbed with the regular bell schedules for the day. You could ask the front office or IT to exclude your, well, in this case we'll say commons. You could exclude your commons from schedule and pages and music if you wanted. You could exclude all three audio types. You'll still get the emergency pages.
So they could do that in the auditorium as well?
Correct. I need to make a correction on that statement. The auditorium does not have intercom speakers. It does, disregard. It's got some small, yep, it does. This is also unique in the intercom, or in the auditorium, that they have these clock speaker combos. Many of my customers request that the message boards or clocks in the auditorium be able to be made dark. That's what that auditorium MB's on-off on the admin console was for. It will blank them out. I'm not going to close this logical view just yet. I want to come down to zone page modules. Zone page modules now, these are the physical chains of speakers throughout the building for one-way speakers. Many of them will line up with the logical zones you saw above, but above they could also be a grouping of several of these or a group that includes classrooms, so on and so forth. The difference is, with the zone page module, you have a volume control and a graphical representation of the exclusions. Speaker symbol indicates live pages, a bell symbol indicates schedule pages, or schedule audio, and the musical note indicates program audio. The nice thing about the graphical representation is I can tell whether it's on or off. I cannot tell that up in the logical, but I will come up here to all page and clear all page exclusions, and you can see it took effect down below as well. So you can do it in either one, but up here you don't see what you were doing.
So there's no visual feedback if you press set for...
In the zones view, there is no visual feedback of set or clear for any of the exclusions. You would see the result in the zone page modules or the rooms, which we're going to look at here in just a second. You have no 24-port gateways, so we can skip that one. I'm going to put up rooms here. I'm going to scroll down a little. Now you might think at first glance that these two are identical, and for the most part they are, with one exception. In a classroom, the amplifier is built into the speaker. So when I set the volume to 1, it is as quiet as that room can get, and 10 is as loud as that room can get. That is not the same with the zone page modules. With the zone page modules, 1 is quieter, 10 is louder, but the ability to truly control the greatest range of volume will be obtained on the back of the amplifier, which we'll see in later slides. Any questions on these?
So when you turn the volume down to like 1 in the main office, that makes so the speaking coming out of the speakers quieter? Does it also make their voice quieter going back to the...
Nope, this does not affect the talkback audio into the admin console. Good question. It only affects the listener in the room's volume level.
So also if you exclude bells, say Mandy's Pantry, how long do those stay excluded for?
They reset automatically at midnight.
So if you wanted it all week, you have to do it each day?
You could do it each day, or you could put it into a schedule and drop the schedule on the calendar. The schedule would say at midnight or at 12:01, exclude Mandy's Pantry from these types of audio, and that way it would happen every day that it was on the calendar.
The nice thing is you don't accidentally forget to unexclude.
Correct. Yeah, exclusions should be a one-off thing, an exception. And the last one, although it says you have 16 aux relays, and although they are here under audio controls for exclusions, you are not using any of the aux in an audio fashion. They are used for security. Please do not make any adjustments to the aux relays. Next is tools, attachments. Any sound or message that is produced, message being a text message on the board, any sound or message that is produced in the system is called an attachment. I'm going to change this view because, again, as a full admin, mine looks slightly different than yours. So this is what you would see if you came into attachments. You have the ability to add custom attachments. I recommend everybody proceed those with a period. The reason is this whole list is sorted alphabetically, and there are lots of manufacturer-provided sounds. If you're not going to be using them, let them stay at the bottom of the list because all the periods will sort to the top. You also know which ones of these came from the factory and which ones were custom added, because factory sounds can never be edited, and any sound that is in use can never be deleted. If it is a sound, not a message board attachment, it will have a preview button. You are free to click the preview button. It will come out your computer speakers only, not out any of the paging or intercom speakers. The reason you might do that is district-wide, you tend to use a 3 times medium ding, so that is what we've made your bell. If you were to click this button, preview it on your PC and say, yeah, I don't want that as my bell, feel free to preview any of the other sound files in the system and decide which one you like, contacting IT back and asking them to switch your bell to such and such. If none of those are right, you can add a new attachment, give it a name. This will be our new MVHS sound. Notice I put a period in the beginning. The attachment type, we have a couple we'll talk about. Audio file is the most common. The next most common will be message. When you choose audio file, you have the choice by default of shared, or you could choose by schools. Typically, I say that if you have a need for a new sound, quite likely your peers may as well. But if this is, say, your school fight song, there's no reason to share it, and you could limit it to just your school. That will be your only option. At this point, you're going to choose File. You will find an MP3 or WAV file on your computer, double-click it, and the system will automatically fill in the rest of the fields that are relevant. Don't make any other changes after choosing your file, and click Save. Once you save it, and I'm not going to in this case, but once you save it, you'll be returned to this screen, and the attachment will be available for your use. A couple of these attachments you may have noticed, and I mentioned, because they do not have a preview, they are not a sound. So what are they? These are messages. Now I like to precede messages with a .mb. I'm just going to click Edit on one of these that's already here, and I can see that somebody else created a .mb, congratulations, class of 2021, this is just what they called it. They gave it a description, that's up to you. Instead of choosing audio file, they chose an attachment type of message. Again, they would have been presented with shared or by schools. This one was specific to their school. Now they have these other options that automatically popped up. They can choose one-line or two-line message. They can choose their color, and they stick their cursor in here, and they just start typing their message. You also have the ability to insert, and you can play with these on your own, but you can insert various dynamic things like today's date and time, timer, call in detail, those kinds of things. For every line in your message, you have the ability to truncate, meaning hold it steady, or scroll it. There's some delays you can put in it. And then, what do we do if you look in most of your classrooms, you only have a single line message board, and in some places in hallways. So what do you do when a two-line message arrives at a one-line message board? The default action is usually the most appropriate, and that is to concatenate lines 1 and 2. That means display line 1, clear the screen, and then display line 2. Scroll speed of slow is recommended. There's not enough Red Bull for kids to follow fast. It's really fast. Why would you ever do a two-line message if you have only one-line message boards? This is a perfect example. You have the ability to truncate one and scroll the other. That's an option. You could flash one and not another, so on and so forth. Once you have saved your custom message board attachment, I do encourage you to preview it prior to putting it in a schedule or similar. And you would do that by choosing a particular school and zone. You will only be able to choose your own school. And we should create a zone of just message boards around whoever is doing the message creation. And this way you don't send it out to the whole school to preview it. The reason I recommend previewing it is sometimes you might want to truncate this and you find out the word's too long to fit on the screen, or maybe you don't like the spacing or the way it's spelled. Previewing is a good choice. When your changes are done, you're clicking Save in the bottom right-hand corner, and that will take you back out to Tools Attachments. Any questions on attachments? Okay, hearing none, where do we use them? Tools, Schedule Management. This is where you will spend the bulk of your time. Those other things that I showed you will already be done once you've created your first schedule. You shouldn't have to do them again, but you will be creating schedules. So I'm going to drop down here. Your choice would only be Mountain View High School. I can see that there is an exclusion reset schedule already created. This is from an older template that was used. There's no other Bell schedules for you, so we're going to click Add New Schedule. And at this point in the training, I usually ask for my attendees to read to me their Bell schedule. First is, what type of schedule are we creating? I recommend you stay away from date or day specific names. So we're going to say this is your normal schedule. I want to go over to the blue box and skip the time for just a moment. The default action is play audio or tones, and that is usually the most appropriate. We're going to drop this down and choose .Bell Mountain View High School. Whether you like that sound or not, I want you to choose that. This way, once you've created all your schedules, if you don't like the sound, we only have to change it in one place back on Tools Attachments. We don't need to change it in every row of your schedule. Now I'm going to choose a location. It's not uncommon for bells to go everywhere, but if you have a need to send it only to first floor, second floor, auditorium, classrooms, exterior, that's your choice. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm choosing all zones. That is my location. Duration. If you hover over it, it'll give you some text, but here's what it says. It says the duration of 0 will play the sound file once. Now, if you paid attention back on Tools Attachments, you'll know that Bell Mountain View High School was a 3 times medium ding. So if we play this for 0 seconds, we will get 3 chimes. If you would like, say 5 chimes, you should get IT or somebody with an audio editor to chain the file together 5 times and save it as a single file so that you can then play it 0 seconds or once. If you try and get smart and say, well, that's a 3-second file and I really want to play it for 5 seconds, I'll just play that file for 5 seconds. You may get ding, 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 and it'll cut off in the middle because it won't be precisely the right length. Make the sound file exactly how you want it and go 0 seconds. There are some exceptions to that. There are some steady tones that the manufacturer provided. They have no beginning or end, so feel free to annoy your students with long durations. Give it a name. I like to give it a name just so that I can see at a glance what's in my schedule. I'm going to call this bell, very descriptive. Now I'm going to go back to the top at my time. When I put my cursor in here, I now ask you what's the first bell on your calendar, on your daily schedule in normal, and you say it's 8 o'clock. 08000001, or A for AM, add to schedule. Next bell, 090000, add to schedule. Notice everything in the blue box is staying the same. So I just go through my schedule quickly, and I put in all of my start times. If you would then well, at least get past noon here. So 12:00 p.m., add to schedule. Now you need the end of class times. I find it easier to just go down the list. First is my start bells, and then I have my end bells. My end bells are all 5 minutes before my next start bell. So 08:55:00 a.m. 09:55:00, 10:55:00 a.m., and so on and so forth. On the right-hand side, they're auto-sorting, so it doesn't matter what order I put them in, so long as I get them all in there. Now, what else can I do besides audio or tones? Music. Music is a very common one in high schools. If you do music, your choice for the action would be program distribution. Remember back on tools, audio controls. Your channel, you now have 2 choices, music input or turn it off. You again choose a location. Maybe this one should only go to the hallways, not the classrooms, because perhaps the teachers are teaching in the classrooms. So we will go first floor, second, third, and fourth classrooms. Oh, we have one called hallways already. You could do that. You could say gyms. Okay, this is where I want to send this. I'm going to change this to say music on, because I'm doing a channel of music input, and I start putting my times in. I don't know what our time's going to be. Our time's going to be 08:55:01. Add to schedule. 09:55:01. Add to schedule. Now, I've turned the music on, but I've never turned it off. So it's actually going to come on at 08:55 and never shut off all the way till the end of the day. So now, in my blue box, I change one field to off. I change this to say off, just so I know. And then I come back here and I put in my off times. And so on and so forth. Until you've built out your entire schedule the way you like it, you can confirm by looking down this list. There's a bell, music on, music off, bell, music on. Oops, I missed an off, and put that in. When you are satisfied that your schedule is complete, come down to the bottom right-hand corner, click Save. I'm going to go ahead and do that in this case, but I will delete these at the end of our training session. Now, let's say I have a second schedule. It's our late start or early release day. This one's so close in our training that I'm just going to copy my normal schedule. I'm going to call this early release. And the only changes on our early release days is they get out 1 hour earlier. I'm going to delete this last bell. and click Save. Now, before I do click Save, I just want to mention that what could you do with the music? That's entirely up to you. One of the most innovative uses that a customer does, they actually put a bell at the beginning of the class. At the end of class, music starts. 4 minutes later, music stops. 1 minute later, start a class bell, you're tardy. So it's little musical chairs. Up to you how you use it. Okay, that's saved. Any questions on schedules?
No, pretty straightforward.
All righty. Last but not least is the calendar. What do we do with these schedules? Surprise, surprise. When you go to this page, you will see Mountain View High School. On the left-hand side, it says drag and drop schedules. You can see the two that we created today and one that was pre-existing, schedules available to you. Now, if you take and drag and drop something onto the calendar, you'll notice this is a big fat no symbol. The reason is you cannot affect the past. So here we are on come on, Johnny. There we go. Today or later, I can drop this down here. Now, when you drag and drop things, they do show up in orange to tell you that they are ad hoc occurrences. You'll notice I just dropped 2 of them on the exact same day. You can drop up to 5 unique schedules onto any individual calendar day. Why would you ever do this? I don't know. Your needs might be unique. Most of my customers are only using 1 schedule per day, but one customer did ask, all of our morning bells are the same and only the afternoons are different. Okay, fine. Create a morning schedule and then an early release late start and a regular afternoon, and drop those on the calendar as necessary. But that's the last time I'm going to recommend dropping anything on the calendar, because to fill out your school year, that would be a long time. If we click on an orange entry, the only choice we get is to delete it because it was an ad hoc entry. Instead, I'm going to recommend you use these recurrence symbol, little arrows. I'm going to recommend you always go to weekly, choose the days of the week. In our case, you guys, for our fictional demonstration, are going to have an early release Wednesday. So I'm on the normal schedule. I'm going to say Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm going to start on the first day of school. I don't care what day of the week it is. And I'm going to end on the last day of the school year. I don't care what day of the week it is. We're going to get out early this year, February 22nd. And I'm going to save. I'm going to do the exact same thing again with early release, weekly, Wednesday, first day of school, last day of school.
Seem to know the district's schedule pretty well.
Yeah? And save. Now you'll notice it's actually not on here because we are in summer. So I'm going to go forward. There it is. It began in August and it goes forward. At this point, you now switch from a bell schedule to a district calendar, and you say, yes, but this is a holiday. So we click on the blue entry. Now we get 3 choices, different from the orange. The default is usually the most appropriate, that is, remove this occurrence only. The next one says remove all occurrences or edit this recurrence pattern. Note that if you edit the recurrence pattern, you're going to goof up all of these individual removals that you did. So yes, I want to remove that holiday. And then you go forward and you find your next holiday. I don't know, this one's going to be a holiday. And of course, somewhere in there you're going to have a break, so you'll delete all the days in a week. Maybe this week is teacher conferences, so you don't really have the days off, but they're not normal. So we're just going to do this. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you've decided because of parent conferences, you're going to put early release on those days. There you go. When you are complete with the district calendar to your satisfaction, click Save in the bottom right-hand corner, or else all of your work was for naught. And when you do that, it will copy down to the school and immediately take effect. You may only schedule 365 days in advance, and I am not saving this So you are responsible to create your calendar before the school year starts. And many times I do this for the customer in the summer if they're present. And inevitably, they'll have a snow day, and they'll wonder why their bells didn't work on the last day of school, and it's because in September, when you created the bell schedule, we didn't know you were going to have a snow day. So please, if you do need to make changes, come back out here and manage it throughout the school year. Any questions on the calendar? Okay, I'm going to go quickly delete those two schedules, and then we're going to go back and finish the last bits of PowerPoint.
You might have mentioned at the start, but for them to get access to this system, you set up accounts for them, right? I mean,
Evergreen IT, they need to request to be part of the Telecenter Users AD group. It is on that first slide.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
Did they have this system in their old school? I don't know if you know.
Mountain View High School did not have Telecenter previously, no. Most every other school in the district does. It's, give me a second here. There we go. Okay, we're going to talk about components. I break down the components into two slides and two categories on each slide. This is the user interactive components. These are the things that you see today during your training and you will continue to see throughout your life at the school. They're broken down into how they are powered. Non-PoE. PoE means power over Ethernet. It gets its power from the network. I'm sorry, non-PoE gets its power from the wall. PoE gets its power from the network. Non-PoE devices, the district server. This is actually the web interface that you just saw. The campus controller, I will show you in just a moment. This is the brains of your school. And the amplifiers are the devices we're going to look at in detail on how to change the volume of the long chains of speakers in your hallways, large areas, and so forth. PoE powered devices, that very pretty, that color, not a phone admin console that I talked about. And then the message boards. The message boards are in each of your classrooms, and they're in the hallways, and they're the ones that some people may call clocks, but they are also, they can produce messages. There's references to the manual pages if you want to go read up all about them. Where are these devices located? This is our virtual walkthrough. We are down where the two asterisks are right now. The two asterisks are your admin consoles, those two pretty colored non-phones. One on the left is the main office, the one on the right is the principal's office. The photo on the left is a picture of what you would see when you walked into the MDF, located at the end of that arrow pointer. And there, boxed in the photo, is the stack of equipment that is running your school. In the upper right-hand corner, there is a color-coded key telling you which paging speakers are roughly where. This is only a first floor representation, but you can imagine where second and third floor hallways are. They're on the second and third floor in the hallways. The reason I show you this colored map, though, is if maintenance needs to troubleshoot a volume issue in one of the colored areas, look at the ZPM number, and it will correlate to the next page that I show you, which is the amplifier channel and ZPM number. Anything in white on this map is because it is an individual IP speaker, not through the amplifier. When we looked in the tools audio controls, those were the rooms. So you don't have to worry about going to the amplifier for those. Here's a close-up view of that photo I just showed you, front and rear. Front on the left, that stack of equipment. The brains of the operation is, turn back on my laser pointer here. Brains of the operation is this device. That is the campus controller. If it is not happy, nothing in your school works from an intercom paging perspective. How do you know whether it's happy or not? Here's a zoomed in view of this button area, because they cleverly make the power button black on black so that you can't see it. Just to the right of the power button is a blue LED. Here, the campus controller is off. Here, it is on. Press and hold for 7 seconds to turn off the campus controller. Press once to turn it back on. You should never have to do this. unless you fail every 3 years to perform the required maintenance on it, or district IT. To the right of that is a green blinking LED. The thing I want you to remember is that the LED blinks over a 2-second period. If everything is happy-go-lucky in your building and you were to look at that, it would be 1 second on, 1 second off. There are many other blink patterns. You don't need to know them, but I do want you to know that if something catastrophic happens and we need to come out and service it, I may not be able to remotely tell what it's doing, and I'll ask you, what is the status LED doing? And you'll look at it for 2 seconds and you'll say, it's 4 fast flashes and then a pause. Perfect. That tells us not only to send a tech, but what parts to send with them. On top of the campus controller is a phone gateway that's only of concern to your phone guys. That's how you get the star 20 into the system. Below your campus controller is 2 amplifiers. The only thing you need to know about them is the center button is illuminated in white. Hard to see in this photo, but these 2 are illuminated. They are on. Push that center button once to turn on, push again to turn off. You should never turn them off. Below those amplifiers are a series of modules. All of these are network powered. They're PoE. The takeaway from that is that if you don't see the green and yellow blinky LEDs, you look at the network switch for problems first. They are labeled ZPM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so forth. Those correlate back to that map that I showed you, ZPM numbers. Where is that important? Well, when we get to the back is where it's important. Switching to the rear view of that same stack of devices, again, phone interface on the top, campus controller below it. There's a big old no sign written on your campus controller here. The reason is there is a 3.5 millimeter audio port on the back of the campus controller. That is not the one that I'm going to tell you is important later. On the back of the campus controller, there are 2 screws in the top right and left-hand corners. Every 3 years, you have to make sure those threads are nice and loose as you take the screws out and replace the battery inside of it. This is called out in a big warning in your manual. It is part of the common errors in troubleshooting. If you do not do this, then in the event of a complete power failure, the device will not power back up. And if the brains is not powered up, that means you have no critical communications in your school. Just keep the battery changed, and you'll never have to exercise the front power button. All right, so the devices below the campus controller, these are the back of the 2 amplifiers. The amplifiers have various multiple channels. So the top one is a 4-channel, the bottom one is a 2-channel. They all have either this or a mirror image of this blown up box down on the right. There is a blue terminal block which contains the wiring. There's nothing for you to do there. There is a red and white set of dip switches. I ask that you not do anything there. That's what keeps the smoke in. And then in between, again, so that you can't see it, there's a black on black little potentiometer. This is what you should play with if the volume in your page zones needs to be incremented by a great deal. Clockwise, turning that to the right, will increase volume. Counterclockwise will decrease volume. Remember, this is on an entire chain, so the whole first floor halls or the whole second floor halls. It is silk screened on the amp, which channel it is. So remember, ZPM 1, channel 1, ZPM 2, channel 2. Wait, this is only a 4-channel amp. You told me I had 6 ZPMs. Yeah, start over when you get on the second amp. Channel 1 will be 5 and channel 2 will be 6. Any questions on the amplifiers? Okay. Below that is the modules that you see on the left. There is nothing for you to do on the back of any of these hardwired modules, with the exception of one. Right here in the right center, I have a zoomed in photo of it. There is a TCC 2055 line input module. It has a line in 3.5 millimeter audio jack, not an audio 3.5 millimeter jack. It's shipped with this really fancy schmancy 3.5 millimeter RCA cable tucked in your rack right here to the right. Most of GB's customers are throwing those away, going on Amazon or some other large orange smiley faced store, paying $3, getting one that is 3.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter because the district needs to be supplying their audio, their music source. Most often that music source is a fruity flavored music player loaded up with music and placed on shuffle, plugged into continuous power, and set right on top of the amplifiers here in the rack, never to be seen again. Always plugged into this port, always playing music. You will turn it on and off using either that admin console button or as I showed you in the schedules.
Can they play that music during class change as a bell? Or
Yep, I covered that during the schedules section about using it as a
plug it in right there.
This is where you would plug it in, yes. And how you would do it, go back to the,
Perfect.
we're doing a fire alarm test, that's not your paging and intercom.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? There has been a fire emergency reported in the building. While this is being verified, please leave the building by the nearest exit or exit stairway. Do not use the elevators.
And to think that some schools use that as their paging system. I hope they're not doing the full fire marshal test.
May I have your attention?
We're almost done.
May I have your attention, please?
Okay.
Hold on. Start it again. Good.
All right, so just two more slides. Non-interactive components, this is the other half of what I was talking about before. These are the things that I'm going to talk about and show you today and you'll never see again. They are all powered over the Ethernet, meaning if they aren't working, we're going to look at the network switch first. The first one is the classroom module that's pictured on the right. The reason I have it pictured is because you'll never see them. They are behind all of the speakers. You would have to remove screws. Zone page module, aux.io module, and program line module, those were all on the previous slide, the gray little boxes all stacked up below the amplifiers. Last is
Back one
sorry?
slide. What is that KI 2276?
Those are the pages in the reference manuals that I give you if you would like to learn all about these devices. Manual number and page number. It does not mean you're going to encounter these commonly, but I do have to put this in there. And so what I've got in here is if you have a problem with your system over the life of it, it's likely to be on this slide, and its resolution is likely to be on the slide. Complaints of high or low SIP page volume. Now, when I say SIP, I mean your district desk phones, not the admin console. If you make a page and you tell me it's too quiet or too loud, the very next question in troubleshooting is going to be, did you try it from the admin console? Yeah, it sounded fine there. Perfect. IT will make an adjustment in software under SIP trunk settings. If you ever go to make a page and you get the pre-announced tone without subsequent audio, beep, no voice behind it, you have a decision to make. If you like your job, call IT and tell them that you got a pre-announced tone without subsequent audio. If you ever thought about getting into IT, tell them you think you have a multicast issue on the network, in which case you likely will be hired without an interview. Zonal, I use this term twice. Zonal complaints of high or low page volume. Remember I talked about the amplifier controlling an entire chain of speakers. If the entire first floor halls are too loud or too quiet, this is where you're going to go and adjust that potentiometer on the back of the amplifier for a particular zone. Zonal, same definition, complaints of no pages or bells. Check to make sure the amplifier is on, the zone page module has power, network issues, those kinds of things. As for volumes, we install these systems during the summer when something is notably absent, and that would be students. We do our best to make it audible without breaking anybody's eardrums, but sometimes students can foil that. So you may find yourself raising that volume. School-wide complaints of no pages or bells. I've gone down my troubleshooting. I now suspect things like the campus controller because that's the only thing that would affect school-wide. And then programming changes not taking effect at school. This one's a little difficult to detect, but here's the scenario you can think of, and that is back when we created our calendar, and I said you click save in the bottom right-hand corner, it copies down to the school and immediately takes effect. If you say, come in and adjust your 8:10 a.m. start bell to 8:05 a.m. and you click save, And at 8:05, you don't get the new bell, and at 8:10, you still get the old bell. That's a break between the district server and the campus controller. You would call IT and have them verify these things here, or tell them that the programming didn't take effect. When any of these are not the issue or don't resolve the issue, it's time to read those 900 pages, or contact IT and they can contact us. Any questions, comments, concerns, or queries? All righty. Thanks for your time.